Sollen wir bei den Diktatoren reingehen? Let's go.
So have you ever seen a picture of Kim Jong-un and wondered what is up with his style?
Man muss sagen, Diktatoren, die haben schon ein sehr, sag ich mal, spezielles Auftreten. Also das nimmt man einfach wahr.
Who's dressing this guy? Most importantly, who is his barber? Or maybe Vladimir Putin. Who's his tailor? Who's putting all these looks together?
Also, das kann ich sagen, weil ich es weiß. Artolini hat mir damals gesagt, dass er auf jeden Fall Artolini trägt. Putin trägt Cesare Artolini. Aber stimmt, guck mal, er ist immer frisch rasiert. Du hast noch nie einen Bart gesehen bei ihm, ne? Aura, schreibt ihr im Chat, Aura. Die Jungs haben Aura. Ja.
Suits does this guy own? Is he ever going to change it up? Is he ever going to bring in a leisure suit? No, we know he's too busy out there riding horses, bare-chested, and wrestling bears, right? Or what about Nicolas Maduro? I mean, based off this image, based off these looks, he looks like a man of the people, right? Gents, when it comes to dictators, have you ever noticed how they control their image? Hun Sen over in Cambodia, Daniel Ortega down in Nicaragua, Alexander Lukashenko over in Belarus, Omar al-Bashir over in Sudan, and Bashar al-Assad over in Syria. Gents, it's safe to say, when it comes to image, when it comes to presentation, when it comes...
Aber ich finde, da gibt es schon so kolossale Unterschiede. Manche sahen jetzt so ein bisschen jetzt nicht so krass aus. So vom, ne? Bei Putin kann man sagen, okay, der sieht wirklich, also die Anzüge sitzen wirklich wie eine Eins. Kim Jong-un kann man auch sagen, das ist alles, ne, so top. Aber da waren jetzt gerade so ein paar dabei, wo ich sage, der Style war jetzt nicht so, hat mich jetzt nicht so überzeugt. Zum Beispiel Stalin. Ich kenne jetzt auch eigentlich nicht nur diese Bilder, der hat auch immer einen krassen Look. Aber wir gucken mal weiter.
To how they are perceived by the public, each of these strongmen are taking steps to control that image. But why? Well, the answer and the reason isn't anything new. In fact, if you know your history, some of the most powerful dictators over the last 100 years had a unique style which today they are still recognized for. Joseph Stalin hasn't been alive for over 70 years, but his iconic mustache and Generalissimo uniform make him easy.
So ein buschiger Schnurrbart, ne? Das ist schon... Irgendwie steht das für Männlichkeit, ne? Es gab auch ein paar UFC-Fighter und so, die hatten immer so einen richtig vollen Mustache. Das ist schon irgendwie, finde ich, sehr männlich.
Easy to spot and easy to remember for anyone studying history. And he did craft that image. In fact, during World War II, it was his great coat and cap that he loved wearing, and the reason just wasn't because it kept him warm. Now, you see, Stalin was a bit short in stature. Some reports say he was about 5'4", although officially it was 5'6", and if you didn't say that, you didn't last too long. But seriously, it was well known by any Soviet Union photographer, if you're going to get a picture of Stalin, you needed to stage it in a way that he appeared normal in height. The connection there is a great coat and a hat can make a man look taller, and Stalin used this to his full advantage. And speaking of iconic mustaches, as we all know, Hitler ruined this one for everyone.
Also ich meine, dieser kleine, kurze Schnurrbart, wäre mal interessant zu wissen, ob das quasi früher ein Style war. Haben das mehrere Leute getragen? Also sagt ja jetzt gerade in dem Video, dass das quasi ruiniert ist für alle. Aber irgendwie ist der Schnurrbart auch ein bisschen so stylmäßig komisch. Er ist vielleicht sehr... Ja, das ist, wenn ich mir das so angucke, man könnte den Schnurrbart als sehr kontrolliert vielleicht. Also es ist schon einzigartig, ne? Also kennt ihr irgendjemanden in der Geschichte, der mal noch so einen Schnurrbart getragen hat?
And for most people before World War II was associated with the Hollywood star Charlie Chaplin. But besides...
Okay, das sieht schon noch ein bisschen anders aus, ne?
His mustache during most of his reign, Hitler simply defaulted to his brown uniform. Now, this uniform was perfected and adopted during the early days of the Nazi Party, and overall his use of medals, especially when it comes to dictators, was relatively muted. In fact, what you may not know, I know some of you guys are, but Hitler actually did receive 2 medals during World War I, an Iron Cross Second Class in 1914, and the Iron Cross First Class in 1918. At the time, he was a Lance Corporal, and this was actually an honor rarely given to someone of that rank. And by the way, if you're interested in how the Nazis used style and propaganda, I'll talk about that at the end of today's video. And of course, let's not look over at Benito Mussolini and his black shirts. I mean, seriously, the guys behind his rise to power had a whole named after the clothing they wore and their infamous march on Rome in 1922. Mussolini and his black shirts, within a matter of 2 years, dismantled the democratic structures of Italy to create a fascist dictatorship that would rule for the next 20 years, and Benito Mussolini was not afraid to don military uniforms or to posture for the camera to display power, strength, and the projection that he was bringing back the old Roman Empire. Seriously, of everyone we've talked about here, Benito Mussolini loved to project the image of being Italy's savior. Not only would he don his military cap, leather boots,
verstehe mich nicht falsch. Ich glaube, der ist auch ein bisschen kleiner, oder? Ist auch von der Körpergröße ein bisschen
ashes, his swagger stick, but he would also direct photographers to get down low, to take a picture shooting up, to project an image that made him look taller and more imposing. And by the way, Benito Mussolini was 5'7", so he was about average for height. But still, he wanted to look bigger, wanted to project power, and that's why we've got so many photos of this guy. Bare-chested, working, or engaging in physical feats. And my point in sharing all this is, you see, nothing is new. Strongmen for the last 100 years and since the beginning of time, these guys have worked to control their image, to control their presentation, because they know it matters. It ensures that they continue to hold their iron grip on their populace. And make no mistake, gents, dictators, they are not projecting this image for you, the outside viewer. Yeah, of course, some people out there are going to fall for it, but no, we're this image, this projection of power, of being strong, in charge, masculine, manly. No, this image is actually for their own population. To be specific, those they want to keep placated. But do appearances really make that much of a difference? Well, gents, to answer that question, I've got 4 specific reasons why it does. To start with, let's talk about the projection of power. So if you had a time machine, you went back 1,000 years, and you were to run into a king, what would you expect to see? What would you be expecting him to wear? Well, it's safe to say maybe a crown, fancy robes, to have a court around him. And that right there is the power of a visual symbol. As human beings, we try to make sense of the world, and oftentimes we go to shortcuts like heuristics. In our mind, we have preconceived notions of what successful people look like, of what homeless.
Mache ich nicht dasselbe eigentlich auch immer? So mit Krawatte und so? Ja, ne? Ich mache dasselbe, fällt mir gerade ein.
People look like, of what rulers of a state look like. And so a big part of strong men dressing in a certain way is they're fulfilling what people expect this person to dress like. And although I haven't seen a study on dictators, I have seen a study on musicians. They talked about when people went in and listened to a musician, if he dressed in the manner that they expected for a classical musician, they rated them higher than if they had been dressed casually or dressed down. And yes, in the study, everyone was listening to the same music. It was a recording. The only thing changed is the appearance of the person. So a big part of the power projection is the strength of visual control, using that to keep people in their place.
Guck mal, seht ihr? Ihr könnt mir sagen, was ihr wollt. Das ist dieses Thema, wie man sich kleidet, ja, so wird man auch wahrgenommen. In der heutigen Zeit, wir wollen alle so leisure unterwegs sein und so eine cool T-Shirt und so weiter. Man verschafft sich einen Vorteil, wenn man formal gekleidet ist.
And if you look around, you're going to see this all over the place. When I was in the Marine Corps, you could tell what rank a person was at a distance, and you gave them either the proper salute or you expected a salute back. If you're walking into a building in a big city and you look the part, most of the times you're not going to get stopped by anybody. Especially if you're carrying a ladder. Nobody stops a guy carrying a ladder or a clipboard. But seriously, even in those funny examples, we are making decisions based off what we see, and human beings are making imperfect decisions based off heuristics that, oh, that person looks like they belong or they're doing something important. Now, the second psychological reason that image and style are so important is the cult of personality, aka propaganda. Now, this probably comes as no surprise, but one of the first things when a strong man takes power is he starts to control the media. And the reason an authoritarian or dictator leader wants to do this is he wants to control the narrative that is being shared. Posters, billboards, state television, newspapers, everything becomes a vehicle to be able to send the message, the controlled message that the dictator wants. Now, with this control of the media, we also see the ability to create myths, to create a new story. I was talking about Mussolini. This was huge, that he was, in a sense, talking about bringing back a past glory to Italy. Talk like this is very seductive, to talk of a former glory and to get people riled up that they are a chosen people. Saddam Hussein did the same thing, talking about the past glories of Mesopotamia and how they could have it back. And a lot of dictators, a lot of strong men, they love bringing in the military uniforms, the medals, being able to project themselves as a fatherly figure, with, again, controlling the image and the pictures that are out there of them. You could say it's funny or maybe it's scary, but if you look at modern day branding that we see the big corporations doing, it's very similar to this propaganda. It's controlling that image, and through repetition and basic brute force getting this in front of you again and again, you see something, guess what? You start to believe it. You start to internalize it. A dictator, through repetition, enforcing his image on the populace, he can create a persona that lingers in the mind and is instantly recognizable to the populace. Next up, let's talk about the psychological underpinnings, the intimidation factor. Now, it's safe to say a lot of dictators want to be liked. They want to be loved. They're human. But they also realize that above all else, they want to be feared. To do that, they're going to project.
Ich glaube, das kann man schon sagen, oder? Gibt es einen Diktator, wo man so sagt, so, boah, der ist auf jeden Fall, von dem habe ich jetzt keine Angst, so? Ich glaube, die meisten fürchtet man schon, oder? Gibt es jemanden, wo man keine Angst vor hat? Gar nicht, dass die, ne, das ist halt das Bild, was kommuniziert wird.
Power. Again, with their uniform, with their dark colored clothing, and
die Jungs einfach mit der Waffe hier, der am Abzug, die halten sich gerade hier das gegenseitig an den Kopf. Da würde ich jetzt ein bisschen... Olaf Scholz? Okay, ja, Olaf Scholz, ja, okay.
With those around them having an intimidating presence and one that shows complete loyalty to the man in charge. Basically, the message is the regime is everywhere, resistance is futile. And right with that, let's talk about the divine or the heroic aura. This is when a dictator gets cozy with religion, or in some cases, gets rid of the religion and puts himself or the party in that vacuum. And think about that. If a dictator is able to do this, where all of a sudden people believe that this dictator is divine, that this man on earth has somehow been chosen by a higher power, all of a sudden nothing is safe. This person can see you anywhere, or they can read your thoughts. Here's the deal. If you're a man in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, looking to level yourself up to find a community of like-minded warriors out there trying to improve their health, wealth, and purpose, well, gents, if that's you, you need to check out our new community, HWP. Over at HWP, we've got a step-by-step program to help men become their best selves. I've developed this program over the last decade, leveraging my experience as a former officer of Marines, business owner, and father. At HWP, we've got a supportive community, and we embrace the idea that daily, through small actions, if you just get better by 1%, over the period of months, you're going to see compound improvements and take measurable steps towards becoming the man you know yourself to be. Gents, if this at all sounds interesting, down in the description of today's video, go check us out. I'm putting a link over to Health, Wealth, Purpose, or you can just type it in your search bar, healthwealthpurpose.com. And yeah, you can learn more and see if this program is right for you. And of course, let's not forget the use of style, the use of image to forge a national identity. Most dictators rise to power when there is chaos and people are longing for a strong hand to come in and lead them. Now, most people that live in democracies, they wonder, how could anyone stand for that? How could anyone allow this? But if you know your Socrates and how societies shift from one type to the other, well, when the mob descends into chaos, a strong hand, a strong leader is oftentimes welcomed by many. And again, going back to history, you look at the rise of most dictators. Now, they've usually just got a small group of fanatics that follow the future dictator. And then once they've been placed in power, they go through and they dismantle the checks and balances and then work to convert a large portion of the populace by providing a unified image of what can be. And again, as we look throughout history, this has been used again and again and is very seductive. The Germans, who felt destitute, lost, betrayed after World War I, all of a sudden are being promised greatness. The people are reminded of their glorious past through the imagery, through the pageantry of the strong man and his followers. And as a result, more and more people start to fall in line. Now, if you're into this topic and you want more, you want to know how Hugo Boss actually built up the Nazi style that, yeah, they still talk about to this day, guys, go check out this video right here. Had a lot of fun with it, went into a lot of detail. One of my most watched...
Why were the Nazis so stylish? Alter, was geht denn hier ab? Was ist denn das für... Was ist denn das hier für Dings? Was geht denn hier ab?